Okay, Mark here, welcome. Before we start, this is an instructional video only, so if you've got a 9X or 9XR and you want to put OpenLRS with the telemetry working and everything on it, then this is a video for you. It's pretty long. We put a bit of effort into taking the video, but we muffed up on the sound a bit, so some of the sound quality isn't that great. There were cicadas in the background and there's one section where it's pretty awful, but you can still hear me, so shouldn't be too bad. And also, this is designed to go with one of my articles on my website, so I'll put a link to it down here. First up, read that article and then watch the video and have that article going as you're modifying your radio. So hope you find this useful. Cheers. Alright, hello, welcome to RCHacker. Now today we are going to be putting in an OpenLRS system, this little 1 watt module, into a brand new Turnigy 9X. I've done a similar article on my website, and that was done with the FR-Sky module and all the modifications required. It's pretty involved, so I will actually be referring to my own article and, seeing how whether it was any good or not. So we'll just open that up there. If you go to projects on my website and then scroll down to Turnigy 9X upgrades, FR-Sky telemetry and more, probably the main one we want to do is OpenLRS and FR-Sky telemetry. So, and now if we scroll down, these are the images. This is what we'll be referring to, and this is the main one, is which pads are which and all that sort of thing for programming. So basically, first we've got to do is blow away the stock firmware that's on this because it's shit, and put the version of Open9X on here, which I was using. There are lots of different versions, but I'm just going to do the version that I did with my previous one. And we're going to make sure it's got the FR-Sky telemetry enabled, and then we will install this little baby in the top. And I'm thinking we're going to cut a hole. We're going to cut a hole in the top here and stick it in there like that. So let's go. Let's do this. Alright, now the tools you will need. You're going to need a desk covered in lots of crap. Check. Check. Yeah, that we've got. Alright, so first thing you want to do is remove the module. It depends which one you bought. If you bought the one that doesn't have the module, then you're laughing, you don't have to do this. And as you pull it out, you'll notice here I've already cut the antenna wire. So I just pulled that out and cut it. So you want to pull that out, and then you can take the whole back off, and you will find it's plugged. You will find that it's plugged in there. So you pull that off. That's easy. There's one plug to undo. So you can put that aside. Of course, you'll have wanted to have taken out the battery and everything as well. Now, let's get into the guts of it. First thing we need to do, we need to cut a couple of tracks. Alright, so we want to cut a couple of tracks, and you've got to refer to the image on the website, and basically you want to cut this track here. So take your X-Acto knife, and I like to just go across a bit and go plenty hard. You don't want to go right through the board, you just want to cut through the copper. Okay, so there's a little copper track on there, you want to cut through that. Make sure it's well cut through, and then we'll just push on the flat part. And actually, I don't know if we can see that, but that's actually lifted the copper off there. Good and proper, so cut that track, and then we want to cut here as well. Now there might be a bit of solder here as well, so this one might be a bit trickier to cut through. Now this mod does or should apply to the 9XR. Stupidly, when they bloody designed the 9XR, they didn't free up the actual ports which you need to run the telemetry. Now to run the telemetry, you need a certain couple of pins on this processor here, the TX and RX pins, and you need to free them up. Now pins on these processors can be used for different things, and in this case we're taking them from being analog inputs, well, they might be digital, I think they're digital inputs, and freeing them up so we can use them as a serial input TX and RX. You actually only really need one of them technically, but if you're going to hook up a serial connection, you may as well hook both up. I've got a earbud there.
Go to the flux pen.
No. Flux pen, gee, let's get the flash. Right, we're going to need a multimeter, I think. There we go, so we've made our cut there, and we've made our cut in between this resistor and that pad there. So we'll get our multimeter and check that those are actually cut. Now, I can't stress enough, testing shit, you know, this is on continuity, so you should be able to hear that beep when I hook up. If you don't have a multimeter, you're going to need it. Now you want to connect onto that resistor there, and then connect up there, just either side of the break, the cut that you've just made, to make sure it is actually broken, that's important. And you might find it's got a brief beep, because the circuit can manage to go around the long way. It's not completely isolated, but we'll just scrape that out just a bit more. Now we want to reroute our wires, so going back to the article, it's got the nice pictures of where to do it, and you need to get some really fine wire. Now this wire is what's called, it's actually silver. That's an LEDs here, but I use it for something else. It's actually a wire wrapping wire, which is really good for fine soldering, or Xbox hacking wire. You might find it on eBay. Normally you might have a special tool for stripping this. Right, so as a side thing, you want to get your USB ASP programmer, and this one's got 10-pin connector on the programmer and then a 10-pin connector on there. We're going to cut this here and bare all the wires, and then these wires, this plug is going to be permanently mounted inside the radio, so we're just going to solder it in. Alright, so we're going to need plenty of flux. This is dripping out everywhere, but I'm just going to put a bit of flux on where I want to do my soldering. High tech here in Australia, I've got a flux pen. More pot of flux, and then up the top where these blank ones are, you just want to, because this has got the hippie solder on it without lead in it, you want to just touch up everything so it's got a bit of lead. You're right. See whether I'm doing any good here or not. That'll do, just a little bit, and then we want to do our pads. So we want to tin that pad there. More flux, lots of flux. Fuck it. That one, and we want that one, that one. And it does take a certain amount of confidence. Now the really old 9Xs, this pin this pad, it's not there, and then you've got to solder it to the resistor instead. But I don't know how many of those are around anymore. Now refer to your picture in the article so you know exactly which ones you're doing. Yep, so I think we're good. And now we're going to first thing we're going to do is reroute one of our wires. So we want to hook a wire up to the leftmost one out of those free ones up there.
That's the rightmost one.
Yeah, that's what I said, the rightmost one. Perfect. And then the other end of that goes, again, refer to the article, goes on this resistor over here. I might actually dab the top of that resistor with a bit of extra solder. You got an angle there?
Mm-hmm.
That's good. So I've just flipped this upside down. This is a tricky one. This is right next to, can you see that, James?
Yeah.
Right next to where we cut that other track. I can barely see it myself. I think we're good there. And then that one goes to the second pin of those three. So I'll just rotate that around again. I'll just tin it first. Probably not a good idea to do tinning over the processor. Tweezers can also make this easier. And
There's some right in front of you.
hey,
Some here.
sweet. It's always good having a desk covered in shit. It's always easier if you're not being filmed.
I'll just edit. Didn't get that anyway.
Got it. Now it's not pretty, but we'll test it out and see how it goes. So what we want is to go onto that pin. So the end of that track there to that. That's great, that's working. And then the other one. And you should actually be able to measure the resistance of that little resistor if you wanted to. 200 ohms. Sweet, so those connections are done. Now that's the really hard bit. Now we move on to the bigger stuff. Let's have a break from recording. Alright, now you want to grab your USB ASP programmer. It may look something like this. And what you want to do, you want to make sure it's got these little labels here. So you've got your MOSI, no connection, reset, serial clock, MISO, master in, serial out, and ground and VCC. So the only one you don't need to worry about is the NC, which means no connection. And depending on your serial programmer, this one comes with a cable that's got a 10 plug on both ends. You're not going to use this 10 plug for anything else. Well, mainly what we use this for is a KK2 and things like that. So we're just going to cut this off and then solder this plug, these leads, directly onto our 9X board. So give yourself about that much or something and just lop it off. And then obviously we'll just spread these out and strip each one, and then once you've got them all stripped and tinned and stuff, then we'll start soldering them to those pads. So let's go. I'm going to do this off camera, much easier. Alright, so we're just going to tin our little wires. Depending on how Chinesey your ASP programmer is depends on the quality of the wire. This one's extra Chinesey because it's melting real quick. Right, so they're ready, and now we can start hooking them up. I'll just clean them up a bit. You're probably not going to use all of these, but I've just done all of them ahead of time, and then we'll just cut back the ones we're not going to use. So now we're going to solder it to the board. So these should all be labelled on the back. Find your VCC one, and then find which wire is your VCC. Probably better do it like that, a bit off camera. So that's our second one, is our VCC, and then you refer to your image on your screen. That's right, I can cut to that. And then we solder it to our board, whichever one it is. And we're just going to go from left to right, so we'll start with the VCC one. Now, before everyone says your soldering is shit, you can all get stuffed. Try and do it on camera. MOSI. So this is just being methodical and going through each, figuring out which wire's which and hooking it up, and then checking it all again at the end. Okay, so once you're all done, you should have it all soldered on like so, and double check all your connections and even double check your bypass leads as well, just to make sure you haven't dislodged anything or you've dislodged your dry joints. And then we're just going to cut off these little excess ones and then hot glue the whole lot down so it can't move around. So let's do that. Another thing worth noting is if you've got a 9XR, all this of course is done for you, but the engineers, they redesigned the board and they didn't even bother to put a 6-pin header somewhere and actually work this into the circuit board. Instead, there's some poor Chinese woman who's got to do this soldering for every 9XR, and it is just absolutely ridiculous because the engineer who did that circuit board didn't have enough imagination to actually go, oh, I'll route this these extra tracks in and have a 6-pin header so it's easy to program. Crazy, I reckon, absolutely crazy. So another reason why I'm not such a fan of that 9XR.
Do you need another? Oh, there it is. What? Back for your Tamron lens.
No, I need a back for my fucking lens.
For your what? Because I'm pointing straight down. The weight of the lens is pulling it down.
And it drops out of focus.
Yeah.
Try my camera with the 50mm lens, James.
I've got a really good bit. Just sitting there waiting for when we're filming, mate. And a fart ruined as well.
So,
Yeah.
is that still recording?
Yep. Hit that.
What's that beat? Alright, so we've decided that this is going to be how we're going to mount the OpenLRS system, and we're just going to hot glue it on the back there like so, and if we want to get our antenna out a bit further, we've got that extension there. So this is going to be only OpenLRS radio. It's not going to have any 2.4 gig system left with it or anything like that. So that's how we're going to mount it. You could probably, I was thinking maybe cutting the top off and sort of recessing it in the top, but we've decided against that. We're going to go this way. Alright, so we're just going to hot glue these down. Just stops them moving and vibrating and all that sort of stuff. And while you're at it, if your radio hasn't got guck on it like this, which funnily enough my radio didn't, just hot glue all this stuff. Stops it moving around and vibrating and coming off later on. While you've got the hot glue gun in there, that's plenty to do. And we'll just put a big guck in there, squish that on there. And that's pretty sorted. And then trim off the wires that you didn't use so they don't short out anywhere. You don't want them to short out with each other either. So trim them off. Come and dab a hot glue on them. And we're done. Now we're ready to flash the bastard. Let's see if we can flash it. Alright, so to install the firmware, we want to download Companion 9X. That's what we want to search for. So let's go to their website there. This can be used with the 9X, the 9XR, any of the mod boards for the 9X and the Tyrannus as well. Now, if you look here in the featured bit, the downloads, ignore that. That's not the latest version. You want to go up here to downloads and then download your installer here, whether you're on Windows, Ubuntu, or whatever. I was on a Mac, so I downloaded that one. And now I've already done that. So we'll run our program, our Companion 9X program. Now, you open it up, it doesn't really tell you much. The first thing you want to do is go to your preferences and then go down here to where it says firmware, and you want to select OpenTX for 9X board. Okay, now I'm pretty sure I've got the ATmega 64. If you've got the ATmega 128 chip on your board, and you want to select this one, but we've got the 64. Basically, you've got to zoom in on your chip and just have a look see and see what you've got. Now, as for options go, the one you want to check is this one, FR Sky. and if you hover your mouse over it, it says support for FRSky telemetry mod. That's what we've done there. And that's it. There's lots of other mods you can do and other adjustments to your firmware, but that's the only one we want there. And then you just click download and save that hex file somewhere on your desktop or wherever I saved it on my desktop. And then, once you've downloaded it, you may as well go, yes, I want to flash the firmware now. And you plug your radio in, to attach a battery or anything like that, just plug it in. Away you go. Leave all that as is, and then just click Burn to TX. Now it will take a little while. You can show details if you want. The way it goes, and wait for it to verify, and it should tell you that everything's okay. Keep in mind that you can't go back. Obviously you've committed once you've got here. Okay, so ABR dude flashed correctly. Beauty. ABR done. Successful. That's verified. All that. So that's done. Now this firmware does a lot more. You can actually save profiles and save extra models and simulate it and do all sorts of stuff like that, but I'm not going to cover that in that video. I'm just using OpenLRS at the moment to flash it. So let's power it up and see what happens. Alright, so this is our first boot up after flashing it. It's going to say, can we see that? EEPROM warning, bad EEPROM data, press any key, formatting the EEPROM, and then throttle warning, throttle not idle. Well, we haven't calibrated anything yet. Switch warning, turn all your switches off. Calibration, calibration's pretty easy, so we just go menu to start, set midpoints, at everything, menu when done, move the sticks and pots around, and our pots as well. Pots you don't have to worry too much about getting them right in the middle. The main thing is the sticks, and any key when done, and we're done. Hold the button down, we've got no data. Once we do the wiring properly, once we wire up the transmitter unit, we should get our data, so that's our next thing to do. Yeah, we've got all our controls working. You want to test each switch that all of those work. All good. Make sure each trim works. Each trim should give a little beep when you use it, because that was one of our rerouted ones, and this is all good. So our modifications, our hardware mods and our flashing has worked. So now we hook up our transmitter module. Alright, what I'm doing now, I'm just preparing a little servo lead, because the leads didn't come with this transmitter, because I got a freebie, he forgot the leads. We've got two 1K resistors, and we're just going to put these in line in between the connection between the RX and TX on here, and the MOSI and MISO on here. So I did forget, I glued that down earlier and I forgot to wire these in, but we'll just prepare this lead and then we'll glue them in. Cut. Now these resistors aren't strictly necessary, but they're a good safety precaution if for some reason you hook them up backwards and then one line is trying to drive the other. It just stops too much current going into a pin, so that, you know, if you do hook it up to the wrong pins or something like that, it won't blow your MCUs up by putting these resistors in, because you're only looking for logic levels. You're not actually supplying power down these, and these will just limit any current if you get it wrong. So always a good idea with the extra effort. Again, if you don't like my soldering, get stuffed, go somewhere else. Right, good. So we'll whack a bit of heat shrink over that, eh? I'll get some ready. Cut. Alright, so now soldering on the bits that we forgot earlier.
Go again.
Okay, so we've got our little lead with our resistors in line, got heat shrink ready to go to put over that, and then we're going to solder this to, first of all, our TX from our OpenLRS will go to our RX or our MOSI. That's pretty big and dodgy, but that's alright. And our TX and MISO from our 9X board will go to our RX on our OpenLRS. I'll just get that in there. That's good. And we want ground done as well. I don't know if you can get in there, James.
Struggling.
Whoops, melting shit all over the place. To be honest, if you don't enjoy this sort of shit, just buy a Tyrannus. Although you might have to do some soldering still to get the OpenLRS telemetry working on those. I'm not sure on that yet. Alright. Cut. So just a little close up to see what a dog's breakfast we made of that. But we'll glue that back down and then that'll be in place, and hopefully that's enough to get our telemetry going.
Okay.
So I've just got a small servo lead here because our power lead that came with our LRS module was missing. And basically all you want to do is solder. You've got power, which is going to solder onto this one. Actually, I haven't tinned these yet. Let's quickly tin these. So I want to do power on this middle one. Yeah. Ground is the next one. And the last one we want is our PPM. Right, done, and that's going to tuck in and then stick out the hole on the other side. Cut.
Yep.
Both peaking?
Yep.
Alright, pardon me. Now we've got, because you know you're going to want to open it and close it again, There's not much you can do with this plug, but we've left plenty of slack here. This is our TX, RX and ground, so we can hook up with the servo extension. Just another servo extension lead. So I'll plug that baby in, and then we'll plug the main plug back in. Squish it all in there. So now these are ready to plug in. Before we plug them in though, we're going to check them and make sure we've got everything wired up so we don't burn anything out. So let's check them. 3, 2, 1. Alright, so we've hooked it all up and you can see what we've plugged into the back. We've got ground, battery, PPM, and then we've got our TX, RX and ground again. Like I said before, we didn't have the proper plugs, so if you've got the proper plugs it'll be a bit of an easier job to do all that wiring. And we can't show you inside because we've all screwed it up, but of course the ground, battery and PPM are connected to those points. You can have a look at my article and there's a picture there of that. I can show you that, that's easy enough. Now, before the actual telemetry works on this, unfortunately it's either flashed with an older version of the firmware which doesn't work too well, so I found that I needed to reflash this before the telemetry features would work. So we'll just show you how to do that. Basically, hold the button down. First get your OpenLRS configurator software going, and you want to go to the firmware flasher, okay, and then hold the button down on the module and then plug in your USB, and it should actually start firing up. It's flashing away, it's in bind process. Now I think if I just go flash firmware, correction, I fucked that up. Let's try it again. So we plug it in, powers up, and then I think I can just go TX module. We want to select Hawkeye Deluxe TX and then go flash firmware. And there we go. Chip recognizes Leonardo, good, writing data. Done. That has been flashed. So now we can disconnect it. Now if you want to configure it, we'll leave the firmware flasher, go to the TX module part, click on that. It says you can't view that at the moment, you need to connect first, so we connect. Correction, hold the button down and then plug it in. And that should connect. You can see it's connected there, and it comes up with this screen, our configuration screen. And then from there, all we need to do is make sure that telemetry here is yes and FR Sky, and that's it. You can leave all this yourself, or you can randomize, change the number of hop channels, all that sort of stuff. But what we're going to do, we're just going to reduce the RF power down to 5 instead, so that'll be 24 dBm.
You're recording that anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So the RF power is at 5 dBm, and then we just go save to EEPROM, and that'll write to it, and away you go. Likewise, while you're already connected as well, you can configure your RX modules. If they're flashed, they need to be flashed with the same version of firmware, like as in a 3.2 I know is not compatible with 3.4, it just won't bind, so you might need to flash your RX module first, but then once you've flashed it, then you can configure it here, and it's really good. You just turn on the RX module and then go configure, but that's another video. So let's disconnect, and it automatically goes into bind mode. Now if we turn it on down there, we are turned on. Oh, we've got to rebind it. Alright, cut.
Yep.
Alright, so binding. Basically you hold the bind button down and turn it on and then release. No, I released it too early. Let's do it again. Hold the bind button down, turn it on, release, and you've got it beeping. You can actually, I don't know if you can hear that interference on my speakers here. And then connect your receiver, and then everything will go quiet and you'll end up with both lights go on. So that's bound, unplug it, turn it off, turn it back on again. And then we're good. And if we look on our radio here, if you just hold the down button, it'll go to the telemetry screen, and we've got our TX Power 99 and RX 99 as well. So all good. And if we unplug our Pixlr, there you go. Lost packets. So it's all working. It's all working great. So there you go. Setting up OpenLRSng with a 9X brand new. And we did do a little walk earlier, and it's got a stupid amount of range. Like the telemetry will go down, the RX side will go down first, of course, because the telemetry that's being sent back is only 100 milliwatts. But you know, even then we went, how far did you go? A kilometre into town, not open air. So you know, more range than you'll ever need. Anyway, cheers. Thanks for watching. Done. Okay, thank you, James, for helping me to film that, and I hope you enjoy that radio and it's all working still. And if this has helped you to put your 9X or 9XR together, please consider supporting my work. I've got a link right here. Click on that and that will show you how you can support my work to keep this channel going. So cheers. Thanks again for watching. Bye.